We can't help but look at the duties of the Queen in England and think what a job that would be. I'd be satisfied taking on the duties of any one of the royals. Think about it. A more than average paycheck. A few nice trinkets and baubles in your jewelry box. Plenty of vacation time in a few countries you can literally call your own. And someone to drive you to and from work in a golden carriage. People who come to call on you at your splendid home always bow or curtsy as they are introduced to you. A kitchen and support staff at your beck and call. And some guys with funny hats to keep the riff-raff away. It's funny, the guys with the tall hats never have to smile, it seems, no matter what joke you might pass along to them in their little huts. The most stressful part of the Queen's job? A smile, always at the ready, no matter what you feel like that day, and the tedious raising and lowering of your hand in order to wave at crowds. Nice work, if you can get it. And if not the Queen, then maybe a real princess, the stuff of little girls' dreams. A real prince recently took a commoner for a wife. It's not the first time in recent memory that has happened. Rosemary Cobham in the Christian Science Monitor wrote, "Grown-uppery can happen at any age. It is simply a realization that what excites your imagination need not trigger your imitation. It is most gratifying to appreciate a Tolstoy without wishing you had written a War and Peace. To watch an Olympic gold medalist glide across the ice without rushing out to buy a pair of skates. To enjoy Queen Elizabeth's Jubilee without craving to ride in a gold coach and wave at crowds." All that is gold does not glitter. Not all those who wander are lost. The old that is strong does not wither. Deep roots are not reached by frost. From the ashes a fire will be woken, a light from the shadows shall spring. Renewed shall be blade that was broken. The crownless again shall be king. J.R.R. Tolkien from Lord of the Rings. It was a land of elves and hobbits, of orcs and trolls, and a vile creature called Gollum, who had been seduced by a ring of great power. There were runes to be deciphered, songs to be sung, beautiful poems to listen to by the light of the moon, and elven queens to be seen bathed in starlight. It was interesting to note that kings in this mythology have the power of healing in their hands. They knew the lore associated with medicinal herbs. One evil supernatural ruler deposed, and the ascension to the throne of the true monarch in Tolkien's trilogy. And speaking of rings, Rabbi Mark Gelman and Monsignor Thomas Hartman from How Do You Spell God, published by Morrow, wrote, "There is an old story about a king who had a beautiful ring and 3 sons. Each son wanted the ring. When the king died, he left 3 rings for his sons and a note that said, 'My dear sons, one of these rings is real and 2 are fake. The way you will know who has the real ring is that the son with the real ring will be generous and kind to all people.' Each of the 3 spent the rest of his life being good to prove that he had the real ring." Thomas Bailey Aldrich wrote, "My mind lets go 1,000 things, like dates of wars and deaths of kings." Kings in the myths we learned as children were either courageous and strong, or great slovenly monarchs. There is another legend that was recounted in Sunshine magazine, and I quote, "A monarch long ago had twin sons. There was some confusion about which one was born first. As they grew to young manhood, the king sought a fair way to designate one of them as crown prince. All who knew the young men thought them equal in intelligence, wit, personal charm, health, and physical strength. Being a keenly observant king, he thought he detected a trait in one which was not shared by the other. Calling them to his council chamber one day, he said, "My sons, the day will come when one of you must succeed me as king. The burdens of sovereignty are very heavy. To find out which of you is better able to bear them cheerfully, I am sending you together to a far corner of the kingdom. One of my advisors there will place equal burdens on your shoulders. My crown will one day go to the one who first returns, bearing his burden like a king should." In a spirit of friendly competition, the brothers set out together. Soon they overtook an aged woman struggling under a burden that seemed far too heavy for her frail body. One of the boys suggested that they stop to help her. The other protested, "We have a burden of our own to worry about. Let us be on our way." The objector hurried on, while the other stayed behind to give aid to the aged woman. Along the road, from day to day, he found others who also needed help. A blind man took him miles out of his way, and a lame man slowed him to a cripple's walk. Eventually, he did reach his father's advisor, where he secured his own burden and started home with it safely on his shoulders. When he arrived at the palace, his brother met him at the gate and greeted him with dismay. He said, "I don't understand. I told our father the burden was too heavy to carry. However did you do it?" The future king replied thoughtfully, "I suppose when I helped others carry their burdens, I found the strength to carry my own." It was June 24th, 1994, that the Disney blockbuster The Lion King opened in theaters. Sir Thomas Malory in The Death of Arthur, written in the 15th century, told a familiar legend. Then Sir Lancelot took his sword in his hand and stole to the place where he had spied a ladder beforehand, and that he took under his arm and carried it through the garden and set it up to the window. And soon the queen was there, ready to meet him. "I wish," said the queen, "I wish as much as you that you might come in to me." "Do you wish, madam," said Sir Lancelot, "with your heart that I were with you?" "Yes, truly," said the queen. "Then I shall prove my might," said Sir Lancelot, "for your love." And then he laid his hands on the bars of iron and pulled at them with such might that he ripped them right out of the stone walls, and one of the bars of iron cut through the flesh of his hands to the bone. And then he leaped into the chamber to the queen. It is said that one of the very first ornate baths was given to King Louis XI. He was first bathed in oil of roses and red wine, and then powdered with myrrh, cumin, crushed calves' feet, and powdered snail shells. Royalty has always taken their pleasures to the extremes. We're all familiar with the fact that the month of June is one of the favorite months of the year for marriage, and all brides are beautiful on their special day. Love played a big role in the lives of kings and queens, in fiction as well as in real life. Not all marriages were arranged for political reasons. This is called the legend of the wedding ring, and I quote, "In biblical times, a certain young king married a princess from a neighboring country. Soon after their marriage, it became necessary for the king to leave his young wife and lead his army into battle. One night before he left, the king was walking in the palace gardens. He stood by the moon-drenched pool tossing pebbles into the water and watching circles form. How like a circle is my love for my queen, he thought. It too has no beginning and no ending. The next day he called in his goldsmith and directed him to make a gold circle to fit the queen's finger. When the king slipped the finished ring on his wife's finger, he told her, "This circle, which has no beginning and no ending, is a pledge of my love for you, which is also eternal." And down through the ages, the giving of a wedding ring has sealed the vows of marriage and symbolized the purity and endlessness of love in marriage. A quote from a 1991 issue of the Canadian Farm and Home Almanac. And this from an even earlier time and an ancient writing called the Sanskrit. Although I conquer all the earth, yet for me there is only one city. In that city there is for me only one house, and in that house one room only, and in that room a bed, and one woman sleeps there, the shining joy and jewel of all my kingdom. We don't have royal families on this side of the Atlantic, but we still bestow something akin to royalty on our favorite celebrities. Think about the adulation we are willing to give those who entertain us. This is an excerpt from the 1990 edition of the Friendship Book of Francis Gay, and I quote, "A Persian king asked one of his wise men for a maxim which could be applied either to joy or sorrow. The sage wrote, 'This too shall pass away.' Life is very hilly with many ups and downs. When we come to a rough patch, it is worth remembering that this too shall pass away. We might regret the passing of joyful experiences, but I'm sure most of us will be glad to remember, when having a difficult time of it, that this too shall pass away." I hope you heard my Father's Day show. While I was putting it together, I got to thinking about all this because of the way the man of the house was portrayed in early TV shows as king of his castle. My, how things have changed. My son is also getting ready for his prom. How time flies. He's off to university this fall. I thought of some advice that I could pass along to him as he makes this important transition. This writing popped into my head. It's called A Bag of Tools by R.L. Sharp. Isn't it strange that princes and kings and clowns that caper in sawdust rings and common people like you and me are builders for eternity? Each is given a bag of tools, a shapeless mass, a book of rules, and each must make, ere life is flown, a stumbling block or a stepping stone. Good night, sweet dreams. I'm Don Jackson.